Trigger warning. This episode may contain content that could be distressing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the New Earth Studios podcast, Bring Your Truth with Alex Roseman. We'll be bringing on guests that will be bearing their soul, their transformational journey from the old earth to the new earth, bringing about the balance of duality and reshifting our perspective of how we see things, because in the new earth, it's all about love, it's all about inclusion, it's all about unity. So if this is something that you're interested in and you want to put your focus in unity, unification and love, this is a podcast for you. Thank you so much and hope you enjoy the show. Grant, it's so awesome to have you here.
Thank you, Alex.
And I know you've reached out to get on here to share your story. There's something obviously that's resonating with the new earth that is to your story. And I've seen some of what you've put out there.
Yes.
And the book and the color of it. Like, wow. Like,
good.
I can obviously
Yes.
see that you've had a colorful life. I mean, your arms demonstrate that.
Very much.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I don't know much about you. And I
Okay.
like to kind of keep it to that surprise, because then as it unfolds, everybody who's watching this is, you know, seeing
Yeah.
it through my eyes ultimately, like,
Okay.
who are you? What is going on?
Why am I
What gets you
here?
in
Yes,
here?
yes.
And I know that you have, I can feel there's a colorful story that has been brewing to come out for a while.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know you're doing some really beautiful work regards to helping and being of service to others.
Trying. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, we'll put things in the links after all of this so that people can reach out and understand and look
Fantastic.
at and
Yep.
and everything else. So beautiful to have you here.
Thank you.
And I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay. Yes.
And for you to kind of just start, I guess, from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I won't go right back to the beginning, but I'm 45, Alex, so I've been in Dubai now for about 5 years, on and off. And I guess, like most of people who are maybe tuning into your channel, we're on some sort of spiritual awakening, as I like to call it. I like that word awakening because I'm not awake yet. I'm awakening. It's a process. And I guess that for me it started, I think it was 4 years ago. I've struggled with mental health for the best part of my life, as long as I can remember. I think this kind of darkness or black dog, whatever you want to call it, joined me at a very young age. I became a prolific worrier. I worried about everything. That obviously manifested into anxiety, depression. When I was 18, I went to the National Health Service in Scotland to try and seek advice. By that time, even the word anxiety, I didn't even know what it meant. You know, I didn't even quite understand it. So I was trying to explain to the doctor something that I didn't understand myself, and he was trying to help me understand it. He put me on antidepressant tablets at that age. And again, these tablets can work, but for the first 7 days or 10 days, they have a very negative effect until they get into your system. And for me, at that time in my life, I couldn't handle that for 7 days, so I stopped them. So at the age of 18, 19, I was looking for something else. You know, I was looking for something to try and help me cope with this affliction of this mental health demon, as I refer to it in the book. And unfortunately that led to substance abuse from quite a young age. Again, I didn't really think it was substance abuse because it was part of growing up. It was mainly the weekend, you know, so every weekend you're out getting drunk. But that kind of then, these substances that I was using, it then made me feel, they gave me some sort of false confidence, in the sense it was, I thought I should, the way the substances made me feel, I interpreted that as the person I should be, and that was the persona that I thought other people wanted me to be. So that unfortunately then manifested over a period of time, and it got a lot worse as I got older. I managed to mask it very well, I managed to hide it, I managed to cover it, but it always seemed to come back, and these substances always seemed to come back into my life. It came to a head 4 years ago. I was doing exceptionally well in terms of my own private life. I was married, lovely house, I had a very successful health and safety consultancy business running at the time. But again, this kind of affliction that I had, this mental health demon, this kind of problem, it was never far away. And it came back with a vengeance. And unfortunately, I lost my wife, lost my business, lost, I wouldn't say I lost the house, but I had to, through the separation type thing. And at that point, I guess when people say they've hit rock bottom, that's when I hit rock bottom, if you like. So that's when I kind of started to think, well, what do I need to do? I need to do something else. I'd done a lot of research into the world of psychedelic drugs, and my friend introduced me to DMT, dimethyltryptamine. So I tried to do that with him. It didn't work the first time, and I kind of put it away in my drawer and kind of forgot about it. After another troublesome week of, I can only call it abuse to myself, again I was lost and thinking, what am I going to do? I need something. So I remember I had this in my drawer, the DMT, so I went and tried it again, and this time I got the blast off, as they call it. I don't know if you've watched any of the documentaries.
Yeah,
or you've seen even Mike Tyson's review on when he done it. I think he explains it very well, and he blasted off into this other dimension. And for me, that was the change. That was a catalyst for change. At the time, I think it was 2020, I had just started to write what is now called The Light, my debut fictional novel. And the idea I had of the book was very much, it was almost like a lad's book. It was nothing really to do with a mental health journey. But then as my spiritual awakening came, after doing DMT, the whole book took on another completely trajectory. And it became all about sharing a message, sharing my own journey. Even though the book is fictionalised, a lot of it is based on my journey to get to where I am just now, and that is trying to recover. Like I said, that word awakening, I'm still going through an awakening. I've not truly awoke yet. And I think the more you learn, the more you start to tap into this subconscious, then I think it's going to take a hell of a long time to become fully awake. And yeah, so now that the book was released at the end of July, as I mentioned, it done very well in the first couple of days. I think it sold 100 copies in one day.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which propelled it into the top 7 in one of Amazon's categories. The sales have took a bit of a dip, but I guess that's always going to happen as friends and family are the first ones.
There's only so many friends and family there, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
I hear you.
And like you said, what I'm trying to do is, like, for anybody that's kind of went through publishing a book, is extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not published from a publishing house, but it's went down the route of Amazon KDP. And that in itself is a journey, because you need to get it uploaded, you need to get it past the certain processes, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And it takes a bit of time. And again, the royalties when it comes to producing a book.
Yeah.
Amazon take print money. They take a certain amount of royalties.
Yeah.
So just for example, my book retails UK $10.99, but the royalties to me is like £2.20 or something. Mm-hmm. So the vast majority of that goes to Amazon. So what I was going to do in the beginning, I was going to donate £1 for every paperback that I sold to a men's mental health charity in Glasgow. I'm now changing that and just donating all the royalties. So any royalties to me for the sale of the book will go to this men's mental health charity. Again, what I was trying to get out there, it was more about the message than actually about anything to do with the money. So by the end of this month, my target is to try and at least have donated £1,000 to the men's mental health charity, which means in essence I need to sell about 500 books. So I'm on course to do that.
Wow.
But if I can sell more, then that means more money,
of course,
will go to the men's mental health charity. So again, it was all about sharing my message, being authentic in my journey, and trying to get as much out there as I can.
I'm going to answer that straight away, but I'm going to shut this.
Oh yeah,
this,
no worries.
okay?
Well, yeah.
In a weird way, so anybody's watching, there's people in the cafe. We're in a cafe. For anybody's realizing that actually we're in a corner of our cafe, and Grant's, you're sharing your story, and there's people nearby who are talking, and it's natural. What is interesting when we're in an environment like this, we start to face real life situations that actually make us, like, we feel vulnerable, and it's something we're irritated by certain noises. I reflect, and I noticed that within myself, and I felt that maybe you might have felt that, and I felt your vulnerability, and I thought, okay, we need to do something about this to protect you and this energy. But also, it allows us to connect into raw emotions that are real, because we're triggered. But is it the things outside of us that are making us feel that way, or is it that's already inside of us? Because that is the awakening to our feelings and emotions to a real life situation. It's funny because I seem to find the most triggering place to do a podcast, but it's also interesting to see how people perceive it. I've had guests sit here, there's drilling going on outside, whatever it is, and they don't even notice it. Because they're so zoning. But me, I'm, because it's my home, and it's like you're in my home, and I'm like, it's juggling multiple different things.
I mean, I guess, as you say, vulnerability and putting yourself out there, and I think that's what it's all about. And again, this is part of my journey as well, being able to talk about my problems, talk about my issues, and I want to do that more. So having people here, yes, okay, it can put you off, but again, I'm going to have to do it. If I want to get the message out there, if I want to share it.
Exactly, this is it. I mean, this is the cafe where you can listen. Look, if you're okay, I closed it.
Perfect.
Is that good for
That's
you?
fine.
Yeah, because I felt like this is that kind of conversation as much as it is. But it's funny, like two lads. You know what I mean? Like, of all the things. And I noticed that with every single guest, we attract different situations. And I'm like,
they might be replicating it.
Yeah, it's like a symbolism because they show up energetically as the representation of what's going on inside you. That awakening is the unhealed version of yourself showing up and manifesting in these people. And I could see it like triggering you, like there's a man inside you that's obviously, you're a guy, a geezer who's come out of something, but you're going into the spiritual awakening. However, you've come from somewhere. And these people will come up into your life still. And it's like, how do you react to it still?
Exactly.
So, as much as these things frustrate me, they're also a beautiful life lesson, I've noticed.
Correct.
So,
I agree.
There's always a solution, we've blocked it out, and it's a matter of, there's that solution. So look, beautiful, I love it where we're going with this. I relate so much to what you're saying. I'm in the 12 steps at the moment.
I've seen that, Alex.
Yeah, I'm dealing with the addiction, and more I'm understanding that my addiction is to stress.
Okay.
Cortisol dumps, everything else. Why do I want to make my life unsafe? This is for me. So I'm relating to this, and even the DMT experience. And Mike Tyson. I was seeking DMT, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to change my whole life. And I got so stressed about doing DMT because I thought I'm going to, go to this place and everything else. And I did it, and it was like a rocket going, meow. And I was like,
what happened here?
What the stress and everything before doing it was just not even in anticlimax. And as much as we did a vape pen. So and I was, and I'm like, they say one more, so they take 3 hits, and I was like 4 or 5. I was saying,
nothing's
going on. Like I was going, and one moment I blacked out, and then it felt like the Matrix, when he touches the mirror, and it's like, and it's like you kind of feel like you lose your body, and you feel like you're in a different dimension. And I remember just being scared most of the time, because that's my state's flight. Survival, right?
Yes.
Flight or fight. So I love that you're saying the awakening, like your humility, your humbleness. I feel like you've got a story. I'd like to know the story of what led you to that, because you shared about obviously you've lost everything. But who did you identify as? Growing up. And who are you starting to identify yourself as now?
So great question. I mean, I think growing up. I grew up, my parents, I was the youngest of 3. My father and mother both worked, kind of Scottish back I was born in 79, so growing up in the 80s. Quite a struggle for them, they struggled with money, and they struggled to make sure that we had enough as children. My father was quite disciplinarian in the sense when we'd done something wrong, we certainly knew about it. And I think that was maybe the norm back then, that kind of very heavy-handed discipline. But that, I guess, did have an effect on a young child. And I think that's maybe where the fear came from, that fear of how's he going to react, what mood's he going to be in. And that was maybe where the worrying came in for me. Now, in terms of my younger years at school, I wouldn't say I was the most popular person, but I wasn't unpopular. And I was always trying to maybe act up to a persona of confidence, to say, like, I've got this confidence. I started boxing at a young age. I boxed from the age of 12 to 18. Done fairly well. Again, trying to get a persona across. I then went into bodybuilding, a very, 21. With bodybuilding came a whole array of different supplements that didn't do me any good. But again, trying to maybe act up to a persona. And if I think about it, it's probably going back to a little bit of getting acceptance from my father as well, being that quite disciplined approach, maybe not thinking that I was good enough in his eyes. I'm trying to then live up to that by doing X, Y, and Z. For years, I wouldn't say I lived in fear, but I lived in doubt of who I was, or doubt of who I was meant to be. So when I found these different substances, and like I said, they seemed to make me something that I thought I should be, someone that other people would resonate with or have a connection with. And again, at the age of 18, going to 21 to 30, you're in that kind of younger years and not a lot of responsibility, and you can do stupid things, and you can get away with a lot more things at that age. But unfortunately, that addiction then kept on going for me. The weekend lifestyle became daily at a point. I was working as a trainee scaffolder in Glasgow, and that kind of discipline, that kind of working environment, quite a macho environment, you're working in your building sites in Glasgow.
Can't get more manly than that,
exactly.
really.
Yeah, hanging off bits of tubes and stuff like that. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the chaos, because it was chaos, because like I worked in what's classed as the system side. So you've got like different types of scaffolding, tubing and fitting, which is the more technical side. And then the system side is basically Lego. So it's just like clicking bits of like tubes together. So I entered into that as an apprentice. I was going to do a year and a half in the system side and then move into the tubing and fitting. But what I found, I think I was 23 at that time, and I was surrounded by a lot of, you could only call them as characters that didn't a lot of education, maybe alcoholics, drug addicts. My tradesman I was working with, I found out after 6 months, he'd passed his scaffolding qualifications in prison. He was a career armed robber, and his last robbery had went bad, and his partner had shot the guard, so they both went inside. He was doing 7 years. At the end of his term, his sentence, they wanted to start to rehabilitate him, so they asked him, what do you want to be? And he said he could have been a joiner, gas engineer, electrician. He says he'd always fancied to become a scaffolder. So in jail, they trained him, they sent him on day release to do his scaffolding qualifications. He came out, his friend gave him a few shifts scaffolding, and then he basically made up his CV. He lied in his CV and got this job, and he became my tradesman who I was meant to learn off.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So very quickly, I'd been doing it for 7 months at that time. So very quickly, I knew that, I was thinking, I won't mention his name, but I was thinking, this guy's very slow, but it was very methodical. Like the other scaffolders I was working with was like throwing it up, stripping it down. So anyway, after maybe 6 or 7 months, he does kind of confide in me. It was a very, very quiet man. He was very personal, hardly ever spoke. But one morning at breakfast, he says, look, Grant, I've not been perfectly honest with you. I passed my scaffolding qualifications in prison. So then the story manifested. He'd also met his wife in jail as part of a pen pal.
Wow.
So certain ladies would write to prisoners and build up a connection. This lady started to visit him. Long story short, when he came out, they get married, but they put everything on like her Visa card, so he was in mega debt up to his eyeballs. So one morning he said, look, we're going to have to start working on price work. So price work is basically you're paid for how much you can put up or how much you can strip down in scaffolding. And I'm thinking to myself, God, we're very, very slow as it is. I says, there's no way that we're going to make any money. We'll probably owe them money. But I was saying, yeah, no problem. Anything to help you out. So at this point in my life, I had, I guess what you could call a habit of weekend substance abuse. So Monday morning, I was always very depressed, big come down, and it always took me to maybe the Tuesday or Wednesday to try and start come together.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. So my tradesman, he smoked roll-ups. So he went into 7:30 we met, and he was doing a roll-up, and he says, I've got something for you, Grant, that will help us with the price work. I says, right, okay. And he passed me a little speed bomb. So that was a Monday morning after a heavy come down. So I was like that, okay. So that was what we'd done. That was like our price work diet. So that was a big change then, because that was me going from weekend to every day. And when you're starting doing that, you can't. It's not going to end well at all. So I think after a period of maybe another 6 months on that route, out every weekend, doing the scaffolding during the week with this person, I got to a point where my life was, I think I was 25 by then. I was still staying at home. I was maybe £10,000, £11,000 worth of debt, and I didn't see much like light at the end of the tunnel. I was in this kind of constant like spiral of highs, lows, come downs, and I think my relationship at that point with the woman who actually became my wife had broke it off with her. So I was going through a breakup, and at one point, I think it was, I can always remember the date, it was the 3rd of December 2003, and at that point in my life it just got too much. It was just a point where it was either continuing the way I was or just going away. So on that night I just decided to take a copious amount of drugs and just to try to end it.
How old were you?
I was 25 at the time, I think 25.
Before you were about to end it, sorry to... What was going through your mind at the time? What was it you were trying to end exactly?
So again, like I said, like this kind of affliction, this mental health problem that I had, it seemed to be with me for as long as I could remember. And it was almost as if I was getting sick of the fight every day, waking up, trying to battle this demon, trying to battle this same thing, this...
The same thing. What is the demon? How do you say it for anybody who's trying to, like a 5-year understanding what a demon is, if you were to explain it from your point of view?
So if I was saying to myself like a mental health demon, like the way I would describe like mental health, if you've got a mental health problem, it's like a cancer of the brain. People can understand cancer because they can see it in somebody, they can see the deterioration. But if you're suffering from mental health, it's very hard to see because people can mask it like I did, but inside your head, you're battling every day. I was an obsessive thinker, you know, my thoughts ran away with me. You could say something, like, you might not think it's anything, you know what I mean, but I would take it the wrong way. But Alex had just said that to me and manifest all these thoughts. So that's how I lived every single day. I lived with the fact that I felt I wasn't good enough, I felt that I wasn't going to go anywhere in life. So that battle I had just become sick of. Also, with the substances, the fact that I was maybe masking this horrific come down that I was going to have once I came off, everything in my head was just spiralling, you know. I was looking at my life and saying, I've just split up with the girl who I was going to marry. I've got all this debt. I'm in a job where I don't see it going anywhere in terms of making a lot of money. I'm still living with my parents, and all the negativity just kind of kept on spiraling. So that's what I was trying to free myself from. I was trying to free myself from those thoughts. I was, I guess, just sick of being who I was at that point. Sick of waking up and thinking I wasn't good enough. Sick of every day trying to cancel out these negative thoughts. The thoughts that just kept on coming back. This in the same old kind of like narrative that I was living. This kind of Monday to Friday, working in this job, medicating to get through the job. The weekend coming was a high, massive low. As I say, my relationship broke up because of it. I guess at that point, I just thought, what is the point? You know, I'm trying. I've tried to go to the doctors when I was 18 to go on these antidepressants. That didn't work. Granted, I never gave them enough time. But back then, I remember like going to the doctors back then and him trying to say, like, go on these. But that was it. There was nothing else. There was no like aftercare, or there was no phone up to say, like, Grant, I know you've been on these now for 7 days. How are you feeling? There's nothing like that, you know.
It's sort of like, here you go, fuck off.
Basically,
You know,
yeah.
next.
Yeah, 100%. You know, and don't get me wrong. Like, if I fast forward now, I'm on like sertraline, and like 5 years ago, I went to go back to the doctors, and they were better because they did put me on. They kind of pushed me a little bit more. Are you sure you want to go on these? Are you sure? And I had to sit with a mental health nurse, and she went through all these different questions before they actually prescribed them. But again, once I had them, there was no follow up, and like. I remember, like, even not that long ago, I think I'd maybe hit, like, doing my online prescription for them, I'd maybe hit, like, 2 or 3 by mistake, and I went to pick it up, and I had, like, 7 boxes of these sertraline tablets, and I'm like, wow, you know, nobody was checking, you know, nobody, it was just like, and I was like, and I said to her, I says, I don't need all these, and she's like, oh, sorry, must be a mistake. And that happened like 3 times after that as well. So
there's definitely the antidepressant pills.
Antidepressant,
you said,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, they did help. They worked when I needed them, but now they mask certain parts of your own emotions. So sorry. Going back to the story. So at 25, thought, Christ, that's me. I'm not going anywhere. Blah blah blah. Like, I've got too much going on, too much debt. And yeah, in that day, I just decided that enough was enough. As I say, I took an abundance of painkillers, anything that was in the medical cabinet, just put them all out, took them. And I remember like just feeling so hot, had to strip off. My head was as if it was going to blow up. And I laid down on my parents' kitchen floor, and I was unconscious. I don't know how long I was unconscious for. And I guess the only saving grace was that I had put on music, and I think it was now about 2 o'clock in the morning, so my parents' neighbour, she could hear the music. In my wisdom, I had locked all the doors and put keys in all the doors so nobody could get in. And my mum's neighbour had a key, so she tried to open the door, couldn't get in. She phoned my brother. My brother came up, he'd phoned my best friend to say, were you out with Grant, blah, 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 and he said, oh, he got flung out of the bar earlier on. So they came up, went round the house 3 times, couldn't see anything because I'd closed all the blinds, you know, I was like...
Wow, you were committed.
Yeah, committed, yeah. But luckily enough, in the porch window, there was just a slight slit in one of the blinds, and just before my brother left, he kind of looked in there again, and he just seen what he thought was my hand. Just by sheer chance. So he put the back window in, and sure enough, in they came. So they took me up to the hospital, Air Myers Hospital in East Kilbride. Rushed me up there. They took whatever remnants of any pills that was lying there, just to show that the nurses, potentially this is what I was taking. Little did they know I took an abundance of pills leading up to that as well. And when I got up to the hospital, I can't really remember what they'd done, but I just remember it was a form of like pumping my stomach. They put me on what was classed as suicide watch, which was like the ward right behind the nurse's station, so the nurse could keep constant watch over me. And for that, what seemed like 24 hours, I was just constantly vomiting. Again, when you try to overdose using tablets, your body has got that natural instinct to fight, so it will fight. You know, if you've got a poison inside you, it will try and help you the best as it can, which is great, you know. So my body was fighting. What the hospital gave me, again, helped it. So I was vomiting maybe for, I don't know, it seemed like hours. Got to the point where there was nothing in my system, but I was still convulsing, I was still vomiting. And I remember that just being horrendous feeling, you know. And I sat up, the next morning, I sat up in the hospital bed, and I was just looking at the floor, just sobbing uncontrollably, crying uncontrollably. And I never heard the nurse coming in, but a nurse came in, she sat down next to me. I felt her energy, I felt this heat from her, which was quite unbelievable. She put her arm around me. I never looked at her, I never looked at her face, because I felt embarrassed, still crying. And she says, "What's wrong, son?" I said, "I don't know." I says, "I'm just completely lost. I just feel lost. I can't stop these thoughts." And she said, I don't remember verbatim, but it was something along the lines of, "Have you got something that you want to do in your life? Have you got something you've always dreamt about?" And I says, "Well, I've always wanted to travel, you know, I've always wanted to try and get a job that I can travel the world." And she says, "Well, this pain, this anger, this hate you've got for yourself, try and channel that into that, you know, try and use that, this badness you have, use it for good." And at the time I said to her, "Oh, I've always wanted to like try and go to Australia and work in Australia." And she says, "Well, there you go, that's your dream, that's your aim." And at that time I never thought anything of it, you know, I never thought anything at all. That nurse just got up and she left, and she says, "Look, God bless you, son, take care." She gave me a kiss. I still never looked at her face, still wouldn't know her. She just left.
An angel.
An angel, 100%. And that, what she said, completely went into my subconscious at that time. And again, I didn't appreciate it for maybe weeks or months or even years after it, but she'd penetrated deep into my subconscious, and then everything after that was just all around getting towards... I've never been to Australia. I've never been to Australia. However, I've now worked all over the world.
Amazing.
I managed to pay off my debt. My father paid the debt off for me, but with the proviso that I had to pay him back. So I was paying him back every month. I got clear of that debt. I saved up money. I retrained. I focused on... My father was in the oil and gas industry, so I managed to get offshore in the oil and gas industry. I retrained in health and safety. I went back to university, got a bachelor's degree, got a master's degree, became professional chartered health and safety, got a job in oil and gas industry, health and safety, and travelled the world. So that angel, that nurse who sat there on my bed, she basically put everything into me that I needed to do. Unfortunately, I still had the demon is there as well. I still had that affliction that I hadn't found the root cause and the cure for it yet. So even though I was like doing so well and I was manifesting everything that I thought I wanted to, I still had this like badness, you know, this affliction, and that always pulled me back in. I was always getting pulled back in, whether it be the substances or whether it be doing stupid things. That self-sabotage, I was doing so well, but I thought, no, I'm doing too well, so I need to do something to bring me back down. And then even like when I was doing my qualifications, like getting a bachelor's degree, I passed that with distinction. It wasn't good enough. I needed something else. I got my master's degree, wasn't good enough. Passed that with merit, wasn't good enough. I had to get my chartered, still wasn't good enough. So it was almost as if I was always trying to like live up to something and justify myself, you know. So again, going back to maybe 4 years ago, where again doing exceptionally well, I'd started this health and safety consultancy business. It was flying. It was just coming out of COVID. I'd built up a good reputation, had a lot of consultancy clients. I was working with a lot of colleges, universities, doing health and safety, mental health first aiders. Marriage was doing well. I'd almost paid off my house, well, most of my house. I'd paid off my business premises. So financially, I was secure. But again, this affliction, this demon was on my shoulder. This narrative of you're not good enough, you don't deserve this, you know. And 4 years ago, I managed to pull it all back down, you know, just went on just crazy, like everyday abuse of my body. My poor wife at the time, she went through hell, you know, she's seen it, and she says, look, you need to go and get help, and I'm like, I don't need help, you know, I'm fine. And then I thought in my wisdom that I could be on my own, you know, so I said, right, I'm off, you know, and she completely destroyed her, you know, broke her heart. And again, in my head, I'm doing the right thing, you know, because she's trying to pull me down, she's trying to do this. And yeah, it took to that point. Then, when I was hitting the kind of rock bottom at that point, just before I left my wife, I'd tried the DMT, it didn't work. I then was in the house on my own on a Monday morning, after a week of craziness. I says, I need something, I need some sort of direction, I need some sort of light. And I tried the DMT again, and luckily enough this time it did. I blasted off into another dimension. And I seen, it started off as all these geometrical symbols, all red. And then it was as if I fell into this, what I can only describe as like a casino. And all these kind of silhouettes of like women were coming towards me, but with skull faces, these kind of people laughing at me. I heard like a roulette wheel spinning, and all these noises like putting money into like a puggy machine, as we call it, like a bandit or whatever you want to call it.
Slot machines.
Yeah. So it was, I could only describe it as if I was in this casino, but it was red. It was like blood red. So I thought, this is like hell. Then I closed my eyes again, and wow, it was just this like biblical white light, like an unbelievable, unprecedented light. And I sat in that light for, it was probably only 10 seconds, but it seemed like forever. And out of the light, when I looked up, I seen these like kind of entities. I don't remember how many there was, but there was more than one. And it was as if they were looking down at me. And like one, I wouldn't say it was a hand because it didn't have a hand, but it was one as if they were reaching down, as if to pull me up. But then I kind of shut my eyes tighter, and bang, I was back into this red casino, this light, these slot machines, and I was like, fuck. So when I woke up, and I know a lot of people say that you can't really remember, because DMT is so quick, it's very difficult to remember. But I remembered everything, it was so vivid. I was like, wow. So I spoke to a couple of people about it. One, like when I was chatting to my friend, they were saying, well, the gamble, the kind of redness of the casino, that must be hell, and then the white is like heaven, you know, so it's like heaven and hell, and that's your death, and this is you potentially you're going to go to heaven. And I was chatting to my other friend, and she was saying, well, the casino is you gambling with your life, you know, this is what you're doing now. With your life, you're completely gambling with it. Okay, the redness, the blood red might be a representation of hell, so if you keep going down that route, then potentially yes. But the bright light could be your higher state of consciousness. What you could have if you get out of that, if you stop doing that shit, this is what's up there. That's what's waiting for you. So after I'd done that, again, you let the medicine digest, you let that message go in, and that's been 4 years. It's still working, yeah. And as I said, I had started the book, but then the book just went off on a whole new journey around the main character's something the same as mine. He does DMT, he sees the light, he now knows what he wants to do, and he's going to open up psychedelic research centres in Costa Rica to try and help people. But again, to get the money, he still has to do some dodgy things, and he convinces himself to do the wrong. Sometimes to do the right thing, you need to do the wrong thing. So that the book then went on a whole other spiritual ending to the book, and that was all through, I guess, my spiritual awakening at the time. A lot to digest.
That's beautiful. so much to unpack.
Yeah.
And you're still unpacking it.
Yeah.
And that was 4 years ago, right?
Yes.
When I hear, the first thing to go back to, you know, when you, before the DMT, you kept moving the goalposts, right? That made you feel like if I stay where I am, then I won't grow. So you move the goalposts, but then you don't feel enough. And it's that imposter syndrome, also not feeling enough, because in order to grow, we have to become somebody we're not. So it's sort of innately within our psyche, you know, that we're becoming something that we're not. So we're always going to have to feel that way in the becoming, but it's then realizing that, that is part of the process of becoming and growing.
Yes.
So it's that not judging ourselves for the fact that we are not at that, say, heightened place, that awakening. Yeah. And it seems like that the redness represents anger. Yeah. You know, there's anger and there's rage. And I think, you know, we attract the very people, and I recognize you as a brother, man, because, you know, I identified that rage within me recently. And it's that suppressed rage that needs to act out in some self-harming way. Yeah. That's why we attract certain things, drugs. We attack ourselves mentally. I've had the obsessive thinking to the point where, you know, showering, and I couldn't let go of this obsessive thinking, this addiction to someone. I just want to like blow my brains out. I'm done. Stop. You know, like, you know, you don't know what to do. You don't know how to turn to. I never had the courage, weirdly, a word to say, to actually end it. I mean, I would grow up and get smashed to the point I black out. Yes. And I'm now reading the Alcoholics Anonymous book, and I'm reading everybody's stories like, that was me, that was me. But I somehow navigated through that in my own way. But it's like, even now, I'm cut everything out. Like I'm a monk. My only vice is I might put Netflix on for half an hour. Yeah. But even then I can't, and I'm like, you know, doing my work. Yeah. So now it's like there's nowhere else to turn to. And maybe you might recognize this, that through your experience, and I want to go into this actually in a minute after, through my experience of cutting everything out, I'm actually confronting my anger, you know, my rage. Like, what is that? What am I resentful towards? Because part of AA is everybody turns to drink or drugs or any addiction because of resentment. There's a resentment that we haven't worked through properly. And this spiritual awakening is the part of the promise of the 12 steps. And it goes through each. Have you done the 12 steps?
No. Very interesting.
Maybe might get you on the 12 steps after this. Because it's just, I mean, I've done personal development for over a decade. Yeah. But there's something about this that's just different. Okay. You know what I mean? Like when I saw it, I was like, wow, my life is feels like it's been preparing me for this climb. Yeah. Like personal development, like everything, like, well, this is really the mountain to climb. Here we go, this is Everest. And it has been like that. Getting the steps and the fourth and doing the resentment. Because the first 3 steps is like handing yourself over to a higher power. Yeah. Like when you're just done. And it's funny because here I am in my life and I think I nearly lost, like with my wife, I nearly got to a state of what you're talking about, that power. Like, I don't need you. My ego was sort of so high up with my wife that I was like nearly willing to kick myself out of this whole life. Yes. Like, why would my diseased mind do that to me? Yep. It's the most ridiculous thing I could have done. But at the time, it was like, but I feel right. Yeah. I feel good about this. Now I'm the man. You might as well get the gun. I might as well have done that. Yeah. I couldn't trust my mind. And then I was like, then I felt like I was a schizophrenic for a moment. Like I didn't know, you know, like I was losing it. Like there was a split going, who can I trust inside me? Who am I sharing space with? Like this devil, right? That wants to dismantle and make us feel right. And then we feel empowered by feeling right. And then we can destroy everybody else around us because it's okay. Yes. And what's really strange, what set me off on that path was doing the prophecy experience with Dr. John DeMartini. Okay. A personal development event, 100 hours of listening to him in December. Suddenly, and I want to touch to your story about the light and the dark, ultimately, that we live in a universal law of duality. You can't have one without the other. Yes. As we know, within quantum entanglement, right, wrong, up, down, all of that sort of stuff. So, saint and sinner, you know, it's actually embracing that we are both, yeah. And that rather than, and he said amazing things in it, absolutely, but it also, as an addict's mind, it meant that I could get off scot-free because I thought, well, if everything's all balanced and there's no right or wrong, then I'm kind of scot-free of my past.
Yes.
My ego was like that. I was like, yeah, I feel really good.
I've got a free pass.
Yeah, it's like, of course, there's nothing to say sorry for.
Yes.
Because it's all universal, it's all divine anyway. Doesn't work well when you're in a marriage,
Yes.
where you're not apologizing.
Yeah,
so I tried that for 3 months, nearly ended it.
Yeah.
And I thought I was on a podcast, I felt, universal law, I got the answer. There's a false sense of security I got from it because I thought there's nothing to do.
Yeah.
Which nearly, very quickly nearly kicked me out because I wasn't taking accountability because I used what I needed to hear from my ego or my diseased mind to escape responsibility.
Yeah.
So when I look at your story and it's about that duality, whatever we seek will always attract the opposite to break our infatuation. So if we're seeking that light, like what's wrong with me? You're always going to attract the dark to balance you out.
Yeah.
So when you're on that seeking journey like you are right now, and it's like, I need to escape from something. No, it's like you need to go through it.
Yeah.
I actually need to feel what that is.
Yes.
And that's the scariest thing. And I had to do that this year, and I still am. It was the scariest thing I had to go through because I suddenly realized at that moment when my wife was in Cyprus and I was in Dubai, and because this is what I wanted, suddenly that dawned on me like Alex, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, it's suddenly like it hit me and I get goosebumps saying it. I was sitting there like I had a pain in my hand and I called my wife talking to her, and I saw this post on Facebook randomly about Jesus, the resurrection, the boulder that moves, and it's like that light comes in, the awakening. And I remember seeing that. I had a pain in my hand. I was speaking to my wife, and it felt like, she's like 1 foot out for the first time, and I'm like, but we'd never be like this.
Yeah.
And then I hung up, and I was just sort of numb. Sitting in a massage chair at the time. And I looked at what does the pain mean in the left hand, and I looked up and Louise Hay, psychosomatic, and it said, let go.
Wow, eh?
And I saw that, I suddenly, the tears that came out of me, I dropped to my knees. I was like, what? Please forgive me, forgive me. I surrendered. I cried straight for 3 days.
Wow.
Morning to night. The abandonment, everything.
Yes,
I was
come out.
And at one point, that snot is like an ectoplasm, whatever they call it, coming out of me. And in that moment, I heard my higher self going, "It's all right," nurturing myself through it.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay. This is all part of it. And I was actually going through a somatic transition. I was feeling my trauma coming through, and I was reading. And thankfully, I was reading all these books beforehand. Because once I got it kind of intellectually understood it, when it was actually happening to me, I wasn't freaking out. I was able to assure myself because I understood what was actually happening. So I was like, it's okay, this is all part of it. So I was nurturing myself through feeling the most abandoned, most lonely, the most worthless, I felt so stupid and, hell, but I had to feel it. And for 3 days, I came out of this sort of feeling, like it felt like a resurrection, the 3 days of rising again. And I said to my wife, like, I'm sorry. She's like, sorry, what did you say? Kind of thing. And I was like,
I've been a dick.
I don't know what else to say. Wanker, that kind of thing. And I was just walking around the wilderness because Al-Barari means wilderness, right?
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And, in the Bible, it's talking about, walking in the wilderness. I was like not eating. I was fasting to really connect to this channel. Yeah. And, we're in the new earth right now. I say it. This place called the seventh heaven.
Yes.
New earth in the wilderness.
Yeah, wow,
it's all rather biblical that there's something happening here. And you are here for a reason that you feel it, like there's a pull, and I really appreciate you coming here because what you're sharing is like what I feel is your heart. Yeah. And when people in their heart, that's when we can trust them. It doesn't matter however you identify yourself as. When you come from here, we're one. Yeah. And when I'm up here, my wife doesn't trust me because my mind is it's a diseased place. I don't trust my mind. Yep. I mean, I made a boo-boo this morning about booking flights. I swear we're at the date, and I even confirmed it like twice, and suddenly it's not the right dates. I'm like, can I trust anything my mind does? And they say, whatever level of consciousness that got you into it will never, your same consciousness will never get you out of it. Completely bummed that up. Shade will put a little quote there from Einstein in the screen. And it's so true. How can we trust the mind that is creating the very reality that we can't trust?
Correct. Yeah.
You see. Yeah. So going into your experience, like, you've had your DMT. I can see with your terminology and how you're speaking that you've obviously done a lot of reading. And your book is fictional.
Yes.
but it's kind of not.
Yes.
And it sounds like it sounds like a really cool story that's going into something. How comes you wrote a fictional and rather not a story about you? Just intrigued.
So again, Alex, when I started, it was only going to be a fictional book. I had worked in Colombia through my work, and again, I came up with the idea. I was working on a drill ship, so a drilling ship working offshore in Colombia, and I came up with the idea of smuggling drugs on the drill ship. I says, that would make
As one does.
That would make a great book. So I then started to just kind of spitball ideas. And during COVID, I was working offshore, so I had to do 2 weeks quarantine before I went offshore. And I just started to write the book because I was in a hotel room for 2 weeks, had nothing to do. And like I said, at that point in the journey, it started off introducing the character, who was me, basically, but not as authentic as it then became. And after the awakening through DMT, if you like, that kind of changed everything. So I had to rewrite most of the book to try and be more authentic with my own journey. So the first part of the book is, I wouldn't say it's 100% my journey, but it's maybe 75% of it is quite authentic. And I wanted to do that because, as you say, if you're coming from the heart, if you're being authentic, people relate to it. Certainly in the west of Scotland, where I grew up, there is a big problem. There still is a problem. We understand that men struggle to talk about their mental health. They struggle to talk about anything. So again, putting that in the book, doing things like this. I mean, I've still got some of my best friends messaging me saying, wow, we had no clue. You know what I mean? We had no clue that any of this was going on or how you were feeling. And again, that's men, you know, that's the kind of the stereotypical what we're meant to be, you know. And I'm a great believer that, I don't want it to sound like I watch what I'm saying here, but I think we can go too far the opposite way, because like as a man we need to still be a man, you know. We need to have that masculinity. We have the masculinity, but we can still talk as well, you know. I think there's maybe some people are trying to go too far the opposite way, but as a man, you're a man.
Yeah. How do you define man or masculinity?
Masculine, a very, very good question. So I think, I don't want to go back to the old prehistoric time, but as a man, I think you've got a certain amount of, well, your hormones stipulate it, you know, in terms of the testosterone versus estrogen that's in the woman. The testosterone in a man will give you more strength, it gives you more the courage aspect of it, if you like. So again, a man would be able to step up, provide, be a protector, you know, so be able to protect. Totally understand now, totally the fact that women can be that kind of protector, can be that stepping up as well. But again, as a man, you've still got that ability to be the protector, to be the provider, to be masculine in a situation where it's required. That being said, the fact that you've got that maybe image of the man, then a certain amount of it has to change, and that has to be the empathetic side of it, where you can talk, you can open up. So I think the stereotypical image of the man who doesn't talk, this stoic person, I'm solid, I'm the man, that has to change in the sense that the male has to be more empathetic, they have to open up, they have to be able to talk, but at the same time, in certain situations, they still have to be the man, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, I hear what you mean, because I think a lot of men will relate to that. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's understanding what the man is, I mean, which is quite strange. This morning, I just doing a little documentary of, I'm doing this thing called the quantum testing and a blood test.
Okay.
Because we're doing two different ways of measuring my what I can eat, my hormones are.
Right.
The quantum is done by energy testing and everything else, and the blood is the blood test. Yep. And I did a blood test this morning, and we're checking my estrogen and testosterone.
Okay, there you go, yeah.
Because I've had some issues in my life that, you know, it will show up in the documentary, right? That it's just about what is that? What does that mean? The hormones, if they make it a man, if it's one's changed, am I not a man anymore? Am I more this? So it's quite interesting. We talk about hormones, just naturally, you know, to see what that actually entails. What does that man mean? What does that masculine mean? And then suddenly, when you were talking, I thought about wild animals. You know, if you get a wild animal, they're more in their alpha, or they're more, they're just... They're just like this.
Yeah.
But if you take one and you nurture it, it loses that aspect, right? Because it's comforted and it has love.
Yeah.
So when it has love, it softens and it starts to trust, and it's not wild anymore, if that makes sense. It's able to have a symbiotic relationship.
Yes.
Because it's not in that fight or flight anymore, right? So I see that animals become more intelligent when they're nurtured.
They're loved.
When they're loved. Yeah. So now we're shifting into the new earth.
Yes.
Where suddenly we don't need that so much, especially in Dubai. When do we need to,
we
that's
don't.
why I miss it, is my point. So if we don't need that anymore, and we do get the love, do we still need to be like this? Because we're ready for a fight. We're ready for something. Because that's our conditioning. We grew up that way.
Correct.
So if that's not there anymore, and that's what ultimately we see as a man, and we're actually evolving within, society, that we're safe. So if I'm putting that down, I'm becoming more empathetic, I'm coming from my heart, then everything else was probably just a byproduct of being in the wild.
Yeah.
The conditioning.
Good point. Yeah.
So the love is softening, and then which means that we're not so different from our counterparts.
No.
Whilst we are more in a safe environment to kind of love.
Yes.
That's why when I first heard about, people who identify different things, I was triggered by that for some reason. I didn't even know why I was triggered by it.
Yeah.
But now I understand that, everything comes down to, people have a diseased mind, including thyself, myself, not thyself. Thyself is, the big guy. But man, woman, absolute one who loves absolutely. There's obviously no gender in that regard.
Yeah.
But with regards to them and the association to it, I just understand that when we come from the heart and we come from love, we're one.
Yeah.
That's like, and you probably saw it from your experience with DMT.
Yes.
Right? There's a feeling of oneness. And when you're in that state, there's no separation.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Point, Alex.
And I feel like
point.
society, like what's happening, the they, thems, and everything that's going on is expressing our suppression. Because everything, if something is suppressed and something's expressed itself, it's the fact that the potential governments, leaders, however you want to say it, is part of the divine plan that is about separation, divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where else can we divide? And so now this sort of other division is showing up. And it's not about blaming people or pointing the finger and saying, what's wrong with you? It's about actually love. Yeah. More than ever right now to go, everybody's included. We're all... We all need to look within ourselves. Yes. What is it that they're representing within ourselves that triggers us? And it's a time to go within. Yeah. With that acceptance.
No, 100%. I agree with that, actually. I agree with that. And, you need to go in to get out, as they say. And I think when you take that word love, and it is lost in a lot of the situations now. I mean, you look at the UK and what's going on there. You just need to look at the world. And I think that word love is lost. And I take on board what you said there, and it does make 100% sense. If you take that wild animal, you nurture it. And I think most of us, certainly in the Western world, we do live in that fight or flight. We're constantly in that stress, ready to go, ready to... I mean, I grew up in a place where, you're always, kind of, eyeing up somebody, I could handle him, So they're brought up like that. And I think I've lived most of my life in that fight or flight. And going back to the anger situation as well, that then manifests into anger because you're ready, you're ready for something, and that something never comes, and it's so. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think, and everybody that goes on this kind of spiritual journey, this awakening, then they do understand that word love, and I think when you do feel it, and you have felt it through whatever, whether it's the psychedelics or it's through that partnership, that relationship, then you start to understand. You can actually start to see the light, and there's something there for everyone. It's not easy. It's not an easy path to get there. But I do think with people like yourself, people sharing the word through podcasts, through mean, internet's a great thing, like social media is a great thing, it's a bad thing as well, but it just depends how much you use it. But it certainly gets a message out there, and I do believe there is an awakening coming. I do believe that people are wakening up to certain things. Going back to what I was talking about in terms of my use of pharmaceutical drugs and sertraline, I think there's a huge awakening coming when it comes to big pharma. Ayahuasca, the plant medicines, obviously DMT, the use of psilocybin, that is coming into the forefront so much more, which I think is great. We've been completely fooled for so long when it comes to big pharma, but that's a whole other podcast. And I think it's great, I think that people are starting to realise through things like this, through your voice, hopefully my voice is coming through, people are now having to make their own decisions. And again, when those decisions come, it's coming from a place of awareness, from knowledge, and also from love, because people like yourself have been through it, people like myself, we've got lived experience. We don't want somebody else to go through that, so we're trying to say, look guys, this is the shit I went through, this is the battle that I went through. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be addicted to these pharmaceutical drugs that treat the symptoms, they don't treat the cure, and you lose yourself when you're on these pharmaceutical drugs. I lost part of myself, hence the reason I'm not saying, obviously, other things were part of it, but they played a big part on my disconnection with my wife. I lost a whole part of my empathy through the use of them, and I know now, trying to come off them, how difficult it is. So I'm addicted to them, so they've got me addicted to something else. So again, going back to that word awakening, I think there is awakening coming. We've got a long journey ahead of us. Again, that word love, it has to be shared a lot more. I fully take on board what you said there about the masculinity aspect of it, and a man being a man for the sake of it, for this persona. In this environment we're living in, there isn't that big grizzly bear or that saber-toothed tiger ready to eat us. These are all kind of, I wouldn't say lesser dangers, but they're certainly dangers that you can overcome without getting into this crazy fight or flight. I've done a lot of work around breath work, a lot of meditation. I'm a guided breathwork coach, guided meditation coach. And that allowed me to understand the kind of benefits of being in homeostasis, getting my body, getting my breathing correct, getting everything into balance, understanding the chatter of my brain when it came to the meditation aspect. And when you start to go down that route of the meditation, the breath work, you calm your mind, and you do come to a place of spiritual love, I guess, because you think, well, the only thing that I really have is here and now, the present, and that's it. And if you think about that, you're grateful for what's going on just now, you're really truly happy here, then wow, and I think if everybody can start to realise that. I was a terrible one for, like I've just described, but always wanting more. Like if I went back maybe 5-6 years, I thought success was to have all my clothes designer clothes, like even from my pants to my socks, I'm not fully out of that yet, but I'm certainly not as material as I used to be. But success for me now has just been grateful for where I am here now in this podcast. It's like, wow, and waking up every morning and just saying to myself, okay, Grant, this is where you are, and I'm grateful, and I think that's when you're going back to the word love. If everybody can start to do that, then the world would be a better place. Yeah.
And it starts with people like you, because the fact that these words are coming out of your mouth, when I'm sure people have seen other words come out of your mouth back in the days, right? Including my own. You don't realise how important you are to this transition that we're going through. Yeah. Because would be seen as a manly man from Glasgow. You know what I mean? And you have gone through your journey, and there are so many others who may look at me and go, I don't relate to this long-headed guy, but I relate to Grant. I relate to his story. I relate to him and how he's transitioning and how he's speaking, how intelligent he sounds, how in touch he is, how humble, and his humility, and being willing to open his ears and hear something on the outside that may be a little bit of a different perspective, and you're open to that. I'm sure, like I feel right now, I look at you and I think, you inspire me.
Thank you.
And that's what it's all about. You know, in spirit, bring
Yeah.
spirit back to people, because, we're lost and we're not sure, and we have all these many reasons of, we put everybody in categories. But when you would be a stereotypical Glasgow guy
100%,
before your awakening.
Yeah.
Now you're stepping into this place. You're bored. I look at the canvas, the blank board. Before, you probably know what was going to be every single day. Your past equals your future. But now in this state, it's like it's fresh every day you wake up.
Yes.
And it depends what kind of masterpiece you're going to create. And I can see that you're stepping into a realm here that is creative, is inspirational. We don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But before, your life was repetitive, and that's what was killing you.
Correct.
Because you already knew what was going to happen. Like, what is the point? The rest of my life is this is what I want.
Same 5 years time.
Yeah.
Same, yeah.
And it's like, that is killer, killer to our soul, because we're more than that.
Correct.
But we've forgotten. Now, people have stories, and I'm starting to lean more towards it, about the ancient civilizations that were wiped out 12,000 years ago, that we've obviously had to go through survival again from the cataclysmic shifts on the planet, right? Where Atlantis and all these other civilizations got wiped out, and the Anunnakis and all this sort of stuff, right? That it's easy to say, no, we're made from chimpanzees and blah, 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 even though the evidence is starting to show otherwise. And there is something that I never really wanted to believe, that we kind of went from that place, like monkeys and somehow evolution. But there was something more mystical, and actually we're more spiritual. And I think we're awakening up to actually who we actually are, rather than this sort of old paradigm that we thought humanity had come from. That was that kind of school teaching lesson, narrow-minded, small-minded. And it's hard to expand when we believe a story about how we started, when we feel like it was so weak from the nothingness. But actually, from what we're reading from the ancient scripts, it's far more expansive. And when we align to that energy, we suddenly realize that we're far more capable. Exactly. And I feel that that's what you're aligning to. This is why you're here in the New Earth. So I'm intrigued, like what has actually been happening for the last 4 years? That was quite a lot.
So come out of COVID, I moved to Dubai, separated from my wife, and then still going on a spiritual journey. So I done still getting attacked with dogs at you. So then I went on through the kind of the awakening, if you like. I done my meditation coaching course, guided breathwork coaching course, positive psychology coaching course. And again, because of my affliction of having to do more, I was doing my second master's. My second master's was in performance psychology. What I wanted the performance psychology masters to do was to be able to get into corporate companies and look at their psychology and trying to change their performance. But through this journey that I'm on, I've now changed that, and I've changed my masters, and I'm doing Masters of Science in the neuroscience and psychology of mental health. Because where I'm going now in terms of my journey is hopefully going to more of a coaching space. And what I wanted to do is, I wanted to get I've got the lived experience, so I've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, been in hospital, done all the stupid shit. But I wanted to be able to have the credentials as well, so when I do become a coach or mindset, whatever you want to call it, at least I can say, right guys, this is where I've came from, this is my life experience, this is what I've overcome, but I've also went in this journey of theoretical knowledge to understand exactly what's going on in here in terms of the neuroscience. So when we talk about addiction, I know what's going on inside the brain. I've then got the other modalities in terms of the breath work, the meditation. Part of the breath work was also ice bath therapy. So that's the journey I've been on for the past couple of years now, trying to build this new version of Grant, which can then help others. Obviously, through helping others, I'm helping myself as well. And that's the best form of help that I can have for myself, which I've now realised. And again, with the book, I've just spent 2 weeks in Bali there, but this was a holiday that was planned for months. But a couple of my mates were saying, "Oh, I'll become an author," and I'll be able to spend my royalties on a holiday in Bali. And I was like, what? Fuck. I says, you know that I've already said that I'm going to give the money to mental health charity, you know. And I said, and anyway, the royalties don't come in that quick.
No.
But again, I didn't. For me, it was more about the message and more about giving back. And that's where I want to be in a couple of years' time. I would love to be in a space where I could be digital, so I could travel, because I think travelling is amazing. It kind of expands the world. I want to go into different cultures. I would love to go to different parts of the world and understand how they're dealing with mental health, coming from the different aspects and the different cultural, religious stipulations in some different parts of the world. So that's where I'm trying to get to. Again, the book's a message. I'm going to hopefully write book 2. I'm trying to work on a series of children's books just now, which is all around the neuroscience of mental health and coming from a different angle. Again, from my own lived experience, I think when you look at the billions of pounds that mental health is costing every single country, how do you stop it? You need to stop the cause, and that cause comes from childhood, you know. Again, like quoting Aristotle, give me the boy to 7, I'll show you the man. And that, from that young age, as you know, we're in theta state, so we're hypnotic, so we're programmed, we're conditioned. And I don't think people know that. A lot of people don't know that, because I only found out from my research maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, wow. I says, how the hell did my primary school teacher or my mum and dad not know that? And I know there's not a guidebook or a book. When people say I'm going to have a kid, you don't get an instruction manual. However, there's a gazillion people that have been parents before you, and the amount of research out there now, and I think that research is invaluable. The fact that between 2 and 7, you've got this wee brain that's in a hypnotic state, and you've got the opportunity to program that with brilliance, you know, to try and say, look, this is what you still need to teach them right for wrong, but you've got an opportunity to mould that little brain into something very, very special. One of the people that you probably listen to him quite a lot as well, Gabor Mate, I don't know how to pronounce his second name.
Gabor Mate, yeah.
Gabor Mate, and he says that he's quoted to say that addiction can be attributed back to some form of childhood trauma. And that's 100% true. you know, like what happens back then and what goes into that young child's brain is crucial. So I think that's where I would like to also try and specialise in, is like educating teachers, education institutes, where it's primary schools, high schools, and try and get that into the curriculum, where we've got such an opportunity at that age to mould a young child. And I think that's very, very special. And again, the flip side of that is what we see, like maybe like in our battles, where maybe we've not had that. I'm not saying like my parents done a bad job; they've done a great job with the tools they had at the time, but they maybe never had the knowledge that we do have now in terms of this kind of the neuroscience, the brain, or whatever. So educating the parents to be, educating the primary schools and nurseries to try and get some of this in, that's where it starts, to stop it, you know what I mean? But it's a long journey.
You've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And the fact that you are speaking in this manner is very honourable, very honourable.
Yeah.
Because that's what it starts at. It's not, I mean, I remember waiting for like my whole life for a fairy to come along and wave a magic wand to kind of fix my life.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to fix my life, and nobody's going to fix this world we live in. It's done by people, and we are people. We don't want to wait for the government. We've seen what happens. It's people who suddenly do the work and have this awakening or awakening that come together from the heart and go, right, how do we implement this?
Yes.
So that we don't need to keep repeating this cycle.
Yeah.
Because it's now time to get off it. And we feel that there's a shift happening.
Yes.
And whatever we want to call it, whatever language, whatever's going on, it's a fact. We're people are waking up. What's beautiful about what you're suggesting here is obviously it does take a lot of work. You know, it's bringing this world into the mainstream. What I seem like you talked about your dream. It sounds like a dream. What do you need right now? What is your need right now in order to like make your life sort of the way you want it to?
Yeah, good question. So again, the material pool, like I said, that the grant that I was living with, I was always chasing money. So I was comfortable when I was getting a certain amount of money. Well, I thought I was, then I always wanted more. Now I've changed and I'm moving away from the more material aspect to wanting more time. And the way I think of more time means that I can have more time for myself, to heal, to learn, but then to give back, to give back, to be able to have that time where I can schedule in things like this, schedule in coaching calls. So for me to get where I want to be, due to the fact that my afflictions, my journey over the past couple of years, I've got a financial constraint that I need to deal with, which I can deal with that in maybe a year and a half, and then that will free me up, that then I won't have any financial constraints. And that's then, for me, that's when I want to try and start to help others, Now, again, there's that aspect of I can't help others without getting financially rewarded for some, unless I'm a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire. So, again, going back to the analogy of the book, I'll always give back. I need money to live. Yeah, we all need money to live. It's that catch-22. But if I can give back, when I had my business, my health and safety business, I was giving money every single month to a mental health charity, a suicide awareness charity. I'd done charity work for them. When myself and my sister qualified to be mental health first aid trainers, I trained 150 people in my local community for nothing. I put on, I think it was 10 free sessions. And that it's quite bizarre when you offer something for free, because people always think there's a catch. And the only thing that I was asking them to do, so the course a one-day course would cost maybe £100. So if I was putting on to 10 delegates, I would have made £1,000. But I was getting it for free. And I said, the only thing I want you to do is come along, get the qualification, use it. People were coming from businesses, so it was going to go into they'll go back into local businesses. Come along, get the qualification. If you can use it, great. If it helps you, brilliant. Once you're on the day, just give a donation to these two charities. And people were saying, what's the catch? Is there a catch here? And the amount of advertising I had to do to get people to come to free courses was quite unbelievable. But we managed to, as I say, train 150 people. I think I raised over £2,000 or £2,500 for charities, for the two charities, to give back. So again, for me, it's about giving back. We can get money. We need money to have that certain standard of living. The standard of living that the old Grant wanted is down here now. It used to be way up there with Lamborghinis and all this, But it's now a more balanced point of view. What is my dream? I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to be steeped in different cultures, different religion. Religion fascinates me. I'm not religious. I do believe in a higher power, but I don't necessarily believe in a specific religion. But I love talking about it. So I want to go, and again, I want to understand how religion can manipulate, dictate, change people's mental health as well. So I'd like to get myself in different religions, embrace different cultures. To do that, I'm obviously going to need money. So again, that's where the coaching would come into it, like coaching people, helping people, but then being able to give back in other ways as well.
So you want to immerse yourself into it and really, well, I love it because you want that to be part of your life.
Yes.
It sounds like it's not about reading it and and then working. It's about how do I put these together where you're just like an oil painting. It's just like you're in it, you're everywhere. It's part of who you are. Have you kicked off your coaching business? Do you have clients at the moment, or this is something that you want to really...
Something that I want to do. I've not started it yet. Through putting myself out there with things like this, putting myself out there in the book, I've got people that I know some friends of friends who have asked me to contact individuals to offer help. So I've been doing that, just to kind of try and pass on some of my experiences and some of the knowledge that I have now in terms of the meditation, the breath work. So I've been doing that, and it's something that I get a lot back from. So that's something that I'm going to hopefully do. One problem that I've got as well, which is a problem because I think sometimes you just need to say fuck it and do it. I'm always looking for that. Like I said, once I've get my masters, I'll be able to justify doing it, you know. But I've got all the experience, the lived experience. I could do it now, you know.
Of course you can.
Yeah, that's the thing.
But you're chasing the enoughness.
Yes.
And the beautiful thing about it is that people can relate to that, including myself. And, you know, we can analyze, we can read, we can do everything until we're red in the face.
Yeah.
But until we take action, it's all theory.
Yes.
Because there's something within us going, well, if I take action and then I show up in the world and I fail, then who am I?
Yeah.
And that's so scary. And then, hey, if I succeed, who am I?
Yes.
Because when you're an addict or you come with that tendency, success, you know, can you don't know where it's going to take us. I didn't really know what that was before, like my fear of success, because maybe I didn't trust myself.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to, you know, sabotage myself in some way because it's actually a safety mechanism, even though we see it as destructive in some way.
Yeah.
You know, if you give an addict, you know, they win the lottery, they're probably going to, you know,
You potentially kill themselves.
exactly,
Yeah.
far quicker. So it's sort of like a safety mechanism potentially, rather than saying it's just negative.
It's comfortable. You're here. You know this wee environment that you've built.
Of course, and if you're you're learning it all, it's sort of like, you know, you stay in safety. You kind of feel like you're growing, but the biggest growth is obviously stepping out there in the world. And I've got an event on the 30th of August here called Bring Your Truth.
Excellent. Yeah.
And would love for you to come along and maybe you'll get up on there on the mic and share your truth.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
And the reason I say it is because maybe this might go out beforehand for anybody watching who's in Dubai. You want to see that, then you know, come along. But I've been waiting to step up on stage after many years.
Yes.
Because it's something. It's weird because 5 years ago I was representing Tony Robbins. You know, I'm talking. I've got the suit on. I'm like, you know, I'm on these stages around the world, and I was traveling. I was a coach.
Yeah.
I'm doing the very thing that you were talking about. Now, like everything shifted just before COVID, and it just at the right timing I met my wife, and it was like as I was sort of giving up that world, I was stepping into this new world with my wife and suddenly investments and like it's just a different world, and then the world shut down. So it was like musical chairs, you know, like I was just at the right place at the right time. But now that I've been doing this work and understanding that I've been wearing a mask and that, you know, even though I was authentic on stage, I was hiding. I was so good at hiding, I never got caught.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'd like wait to get caught so I could at least snap out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was so good at hiding. I mean, even my diseased mind manifested acting, so I could actually fine craft my. If I didn't know it at the time, you know, and then in coaching, I was also another tool to hide.
Yeah.
Because I'm a speaker, everybody's out there. Because obviously, as an addict, we have an issue with intimacy because it means trust, love.
Yeah.
We don't know how to be intimate, right?
Yes.
And suddenly our partner's saying something about intimacy, we freak out and we push them away and we like, no, don't even go there.
Well, you think you can't be loved, that's it.
Yeah, you know, and we're going through this like transformation, you know, but it means having to go through metamorphosis, you know, which means facing that dark shadow aspect of myself and coming through it. And I'm still unpacking it now. Before, you know, as a coach, hey, I need to know everything. Everybody needs to see me as this, you know, perfected figure.
Yeah.
And that was far from the case, you know, but I was so good at creating that persona and I was helping people and I was coaching people and everything else, but I was a fucking shit show, you know, still like disappearing in all sorts of naughty crevices still, you know, to find my kick. And I who could I talk to? Because the more I put myself on stage and higher up, the less I could show anybody who I was.
Exactly.
You know, but the thing about where you're starting from, for anybody who's looking for a potential coach and mentor, you're putting yourself out there. So you're coming from your heart. You can genuinely help people in that regard because you've done it.
Yes.
It's just a matter of you having somebody who trusts and goes, you know what, this guy can get me there because he's where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what it is, isn't it? That you've done it and you've got the experience and you're probably going to undercharge yourself, you know, because you're stepping out. So people are going to get a bargain straight away before you become, who you're becoming,
Yes.
right, as you go on this journey. So it's like a bargain for anybody out there, and I suggest anybody to reach out, take this opportunity to get under your wings and see what's what, because you both learn so much from each other, from the client and so forth. With that in mind, I kind of like just went into like a different place at the moment.
Good.
It's really wonderful that you're putting yourself out there, and it's not about waiting anymore. Like myself, because I'm so vulnerable and raw, I don't have that mask to hide behind anymore. So I'm about to get on stage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I don't have a persona. I can't be Tony Robbins, whoever it is, or I'm not this other mask. I'm actually bringing my truth. What does that even mean? I'm like, I'm actually kind of a little, but I read this quote in the Gnostic Gospels, right? I'm not religious in any way, but when I hear like masters like Yeshua, and different masters like Buddha, and I came back from India recently, like they have wisdom.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
And he says, paraphrasing here, and it's not the first time I said it on the podcast, those who hold the truth in their hands, the universe will pay in kind.
Yeah.
And those who withhold the truth, the universe will take whatever little you have.
Yes.
So it's like, wait a minute. If I'm keep withholding, no wonder the universe is withholding back to me. It's a mirror.
Correct.
So if I'm just like, if I bring my truth, let's see what this is about. Because I'm like a investigator, let's say. Well, if this universal law thing is right, that there's always balance. If I challenge myself, then there's always going to be support.
Yep.
Then let's challenge myself. And I remember saying that years ago, and here we are in this cafe, or in Dubai, all these things are happening. It's like, trust the universe, trust God, trust the absolute one who loves absolutely. Yeah. And it is a matter of that, trust.
Yes.
Which is very difficult
Trust,
for
huge
people
thing.
like us who have come out of survival and like need to be a man. And
Correct.
like I stopped hitting the gym like a year ago and doing more yoga and things like this. I'm like, but it took me a long time to let go of the gym for me.
Yes.
Because my numerology report said, stay away from metal. And I'm like, what do like, how? Like, she was telling me, like, you shouldn't be in the gym. And I'm like, that's all I've ever known. Yeah. My brothers, we were anger, we fought, it was like, this is who we were. So it's like a whole shift. Yeah. So anyway, the reason I share is you're ready. You're only ever ready when you just take action and you put yourself out there like you just have. Yeah. So the reason you're sitting here is because you are. Yeah,
I know. And like, this is like, going back maybe 4 years, like there's only the story I shared about when I ended up in hospital when I was younger. Like nobody knew that, you know what I mean? Like nobody knew that. Only my parents, my brother, my wife, who became my wife. That's the who I was kind of separated from at the time when it happened. But I think there's about 5 people that knew it, And one thing, like, I think it's very hard is dealing with something like that and talking about it, like, because nobody wanted to talk about it. So doing this now is very, like, putting myself well out there, and like,
well done.
It does make you feel uncomfortable. But again, like I said, the amount of people that's already like shared things with me, like again, you'd never think that person would be suffering something similar. And unfortunately, you just need to look at the statistics, which is frightening, and there doesn't seem to be any trajectory like going down the way in terms of like, the suicide rates and things, and like certainly amongst young men, it's still one of the leading killers. And one thing, like again, like, there's a part in my book which I've said it's dedicated to all the warriors that wake up every morning and fight their demon. And make no odds about it, you are a warrior, because if you can keep doing that every single day, day after day, you are a warrior, just the same as somebody battles cancer every day. But what I did put in the book as well is but what you need to realise is that I said, like, and these warriors will do it in silence. But if you are one of these warriors, please speak out, because what you will find is there's an abundance of loving warriors that want to pick up arms, run into battle, and help you slay that demon. And I think that's the biggest thing, is like talking. Like for years and years I never spoke about it, and for years and years I've still been suffering. But as we know, statistically, men find it hard to talk, so we encourage men to talk more. But I think there also has to be an awareness around, or education around, identifying other signs and symptoms of somebody struggling, especially men. Again, going back to that persona of the man having to be, oh, look at me, I'm the man, it's teaching people to look for different signs or symptoms that like communicate. Talking is only one form of communication, but you've got a lot of different mediums when it comes to body language, it comes to tone of voice. So trying to educate people around spotting potential signs or symptoms out with somebody not just talking, I think that's another area that has to be focused on as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was listening to a webinar recently, and this guy said, watch your feet, watch your behavior. Yeah. Because that says everything about you. Mm-hmm. So if you really want to know somebody, watch what they do, watch their actions. Yes. If they're drinking a lot, but they say they're fine. Yeah. Don't look at what they're saying. Look at how they live their life and go, this person doesn't look like they're happy. Yes. Because as somebody who's fulfilled and awakened and is aligned, wouldn't behave that way. Maybe they wouldn't eat the kind of food that they're eating. They wouldn't drink this, smoke so often, or you know, the kind of characteristics of somebody who's acting out based from their pain, but they're saying they're all good because in that moment you catch them, they're using their crutch. Yeah, to be all good. I'm good now, but wait until afterwards when I'm alone. Then I'm not so good. But when I'm with my crutch and you're here, of course I'm good. I'm my best self because I'm using my crutch. Yes. Yeah. So it's a matter of like, okay, well, what are they like when they haven't got their crutch? Yeah, spotting these, and even subtle signs that you could be an extrovert, and then all of a sudden the loudest person in the room goes to the most quiet person in the room, or vice versa. Suddenly, who's very quiet becomes this wow, and you think that's quite a big change in someone, you know. So yeah, I think, I don't know if you've seen, there was a great advert. It was shared on LinkedIn and Facebook, and it's two friends going to the football match, and you see the friends, like one friend is just sitting with the other friends up with the flag and clapping, and the team score a goal and he's celebrating, but the other friend's just sitting like that. So automatically you think that's the friend with the problem. So then you see it going through, and it's the friend that's been sitting down, not showing any emotion. He's the one that comes up and then puts the flag and the little flower on his mate's seat, and it's him that's actually taking his own life. And it's like that persona of, well, you think he's the one with the problem, but the guy that's, whoa. So that, again, that makes it even more difficult, you know, for people. Oh, you know, like a good rule of thumb, like we said before, about the universal law of duality, if somebody's expressing that much happiness, as Dr. John DiMartini said, you're potentially suppressing the other side of it, sadness. Yeah. So whatever you're expressing, you're also suppressing. So anybody's having to be over the top like this, they're potentially suppressing something, the other emotion. And the more extreme they are, the more extreme they are on the other end as well. The other end, which you don't see, maybe you don't see when they're in the house themselves. So like you said, when you see people that extremely one emotion, that happy, and they look really happy, maybe they're not. Yeah. Because you can't have one without the other. Correct. Yeah. So that could also be the telltile sign. Is there anything you'd like to share? Anything else to close this awesome conversation, man? I've really, really enjoyed it. You are really an awesome dude. You know what? I'm going to put it out there. Would you like to do like a workshop here or something? Yeah. To give people the opportunity to get to kind of know you. Yes. You know, you can do something from here, and people interested can sign up for it. I'd love that, Alex. Yeah, and if they're interested, they can sign up for it, and you can just do something from here. Yeah. And if they resonate and about your style, then potentially they can take you on. Perfect. That'd be great. Does that sound good? Because I could do something along the meditation, breath work, and just share a bit of my story as well. See if it resonates. I think, again, like very quickly in Dubai, what you find is Dubai is very fast paced. We know the kind of luxuries you have here. People are making a hell of a lot of money, and with that, their spending power becomes more, so they can get access to more things. And Dubai's changing, which means there's a lot of other things that go with the change. So I think there's a lot of people out there who's probably been in my situation where they need to find balance back in their life. So yeah, hopefully I could maybe resonate with some people. Yeah. Thank you. All right, brother. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. What an epic guy. Would be lovely to see you come here. Sign up for the workshop that's happening. We'll call it something. It's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to checking it out. And of course, if you feel there's anything, if anything's risen up with you new, please comment, please share. We will address it in the best way we can. and we'll know who to bring on next because of these kind of questions. And I'm sure we'll bring on Grant again. So thank you so much, man. Appreciate
Thank you
it.
very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Ciao. We vibe when you subscribe.